where he gets his phone and the battery keeps dying and the signal keeps dying. I'm just like, my fucking god! Like, dude, I guess they didn't have 5G back in like 2004,
Dude, they
but
didn't even have LTE. What was it? Was it 3G?
yeah, 3G.
Was
But
it
then
a single G?
I finally watched. I finally watched.
I
Finally
watched. I
finally
watched.
I finally watched.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of I Finally Watched. This is David.
and this is Alon, and I finally watched Collateral. I mean Oblivion. No, I mean Collateral.
So Alon's making a joke that I didn't know he was going to do. But what happened was we decided, after doing A Few Good Men, for synergy purposes, that we would do a Tom Cruise movie the week that Mission Impossible comes out. And in fact, the day this comes out, we are both going to be in the biggest screen nearby watching Dead Reckoning Part 1.
Yep.
And we decided to do Oblivion, and we both got halfway through it. And the next day, when we were like, all right, I guess we got to finish this, and it's just like, we don't really want to talk about it because, and you finished it. I did not. I never got around to finishing it.
I'm surprised I'm the one who finished it, honestly.
It's not even that it's like horrible. It's just so middling, just so like kind of uninteresting and just like whatever.
Yeah.
That is like, it wouldn't even have been fun to talk about it from a it's horrible perspective, because to me it wasn't horrible. I just like didn't care about it at all.
Yeah, it's not horrible, and I think that's its biggest fault, right? Because at least if it was like really bad, then it could have been like somewhat more entertaining. But the fact that it was just mid all the way through, um, yeah, and then just kind of dwindled there in the end, for me at least. Do you want to talk about the structure of Oblivion for literally 2 minutes, and then we'll move on to Collateral?
Not particularly. I will say, the one thing I wanted to say is that Collateral was directed by Joseph Kosinski, who also did the graphic novel that the movie was based off. And what is surprising about that is Joseph Kosinski has done other things that you and I both like a lot. Top Gun Maverick. And then he just did Spiderhead, which is on Netflix, which I actually thought was really good. I'm curious if we would actually have enjoyed the graphic novel. I would probably never read a graphic novel, but just I don't know. I mean, it's just like the movie's kind of like structurally, it just kind of gives away stuff like in the beginning, and then I know you told me I don't want to.
You're talking about this graphic novel of Oblivion?
No, I'm talking about the movie sort of gives away a lot of details like in the beginning.
No, but you're talking about Oblivion.
Yeah, what do you mean?
You said Collateral earlier.
Oh, well, yeah, sorry, talking about Oblivion. Well, that's because we should move on to Collateral. But Oblivion gives away a lot of details of the ending, and then you kind of told me, oh, well, this is how it actually ends. And I was like, well, I mean, I guess that's kind of cool, but it doesn't really pay off that much. And I don't want you to spoil it for people because the title of this episode is Collateral, so I don't want you to tell them how it ends.
I won't tell them how it ends, but you're right in the sense that, and this is the biggest fault of the film, I feel like, is that it sets all this up in the beginning to tell you exactly what the movie is going to be, and then it throws in a couple of things in towards the end of the movie that seemingly come out of left field, and then they don't tie, and that would be cool. I guess that would be considered a twist, but the fact that they don't tie into anything much after that, I think that's where like it gets messy and plot gets lost, and then it becomes kind of a bad film. But I guess that's why we quit halfway through and moved on to Collateral, another Tom Cruise movie.
You know what's interesting, real quick, last thing about Joseph Kosinski, because I'm just looking at his IMDb, is the first thing he ever did was the Gears of War commercial that had the song Mad World in it. You know that
Oh
song?
my God. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like such an iconic commercial. So he did that, and then the next thing he did was Tron Legacy, which is crazy that that's basically his like directorial debut. They gave him that.
Yeah.
Then he does Oblivion, and then he does Only the Brave, which I heard is really good, and then Top Gun Maverick and Spiderhead. Um, but like I said, I mean, like he's obviously a very good director. It's just that like, yeah, that one.
Yeah, just the way this was written and laid out. I wonder if there was some. I mean, you have a competent director, and then you have Tom Cruise. You just wonder if there was some production trouble that forced a certain edit or certain creative decisions that led this movie down the wrong path. But let's not talk about this anymore. Let's talk about
Well, I mean, I did want to talk about one other thing because I remember
you
saying to
son of a bitch.
no, I just about Tom Cruise generally that like I was like, well, I mean, this is one of his only few misses of the last decade. But then I looked through it and I was like, oh, actually, for me, unless it was Edge of Tomorrow or Mission Impossible, they've all kind of I actually like all kind of been misses. I actually like thought the Mummy movie was okay, but like people hated that.
So what are the misses? The Mummy movie, Jack Reacher 2, and then America Made.
American Made, yeah. Which American Made, I think people liked. Without spoiling it, yeah, I just didn't like the story. So yeah, like that's why I don't know, it just
This
didn't work for me.
this has been quick reviews of all Tom Cruise movies by the I Finally Watched.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Let's get into Collateral. Um,
You don't
this
say.
is a movie that was kind of when I first saw it in theaters, a little like I talked about this before. Like Michael Mann was kind of one of the first directors, mainstream directors that went to digital, and the look of this movie really threw me in the beginning. And I kind of like, even to this day, when a movie is done digitally, if it's not done well, it's like hard for me to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's just like the programming of how I've watched movies my whole life. So this one, watching it was like when it came in theaters, it was just kind of tough for me. I watched this movie again in the last like 6 months when it was streaming on, I don't know, one of the 10 services I have. And I think that was like an HD presentation of it. And I was like, all right, yeah, you know what? This has kind of grown on me. I rewatched Miami Vice like 2018, early 2019. And I thought that was pretty good compared to what I thought the first time I saw it. Um, for this rewatch, it's not streaming anywhere. And I went to my dad's and grabbed my DVD copy of it. And man, the difference between DVD and like Blu-ray level HD is stark.
You sent me this as a link, and you sent it to me in like 720p. And so I didn't notice. It was just kind of like this grain all around, and I was just like okay with it. Like it was clear enough for me to be okay with. So I watched it like that. So I didn't get the starkness of new digital HD or anything like that.
yeah. But I mean, once you get past that part of it, and I don't know, I think I'm kind of, you're used to it now because digital is definitely like just more present in our lives. Um, It's just like a really great movie. It's like a very interesting. I was reading this thing about like Tom Cruise has only done um he's only been the villain like two other times, but those were like one was Interview with the Vampire and the other one was like sort of like a quasi thing. But he's like an evil hitman in this, and so it's like so out of character for the characters that he plays, which is so interesting because I think for the first time this time when I was watching it, he's actually such a nuanced character in this. Like
Yeah.
there's quite a bit of gray with him. Um,
Yeah, I mean up till the end, right? Because I think the whole point of this is like he's going around killing bad guys, and
Not
you kind of,
necessarily.
well, yeah, I know, but then you kind of find out that, well, that's what he tells Max, played by Jamie Foxx, right?
Right.
um he says, it makes you feel better, they're bad people, and then you find out that some of them are bad, but then basically what they all have in common, what his victims all have in common, is that they're supposed to be witnesses for a trial, to condemn a, what is it, a cartel drug lord, something like that.
Yeah.
And And I think you know what's funny? It's like we're willing to accept that as the audience, like okay, whatever. And then Max is willing to accept that. And then you see that his last target is the prosecuting attorney who we've met before, who Max has met before. And then it's like, oh, we know she's a completely innocent player in the game. So now at that point he has become um, the villain without question.
Yeah, well, but there's even some stuff in the end that I want to talk about, like how to me there's some nuance with him, and I think we can get to it in the end. The other thing is like, I was getting in the shower today, and I was just thinking back to, and you and I have done this before. The whole there's the interview with Jamie Foxx when he talks about Quentin Tarantino, and yeah, on Django, and he's like, so he comes to me and he's like, listen, I knew this was gonna happen. You're not cool, okay? You're a slave. And this one I just thought, like, Michael Mann's like, you're not cool, okay? You're a dork. You're a cab driver. You're not cool. You're not gonna be a cool guy. You're a dork, all right?
You
Like,
know what's kind of funny is like this character is like a very toned down version of the character he plays in the Amazing Spider-Man 2. Like the Electro character.
I never saw that one.
You never saw that one? So basically before he becomes Electro,
I've seen stills of him, but like I never watched the movie. Yeah, like with the glasses all the way down the nose and the
Yeah.
hair, like bad hair that's in his face.
yeah, bad teeth and everything is fixed by being electrocuted by some eels. But before he becomes Electro, before he gets electrocuted by the eels, his name is also Max in that movie too, but he's like the biggest loser dork thing dude. And this character is like a super toned down version. It's not that bad, but he's playing a loser. And so when he's talking to Jada Pinkett Smith, by the way, um, yeah, it's he's not smooth with her. He's clumsy, but then he's like I don't want to even say charming, but there's something about him that kind of like she likes. Um, I guess it's just like his hopefulness and like the way he views the world because he wants to have this like tropical exclusive limo service. It's to open that up, and so he has a dream, right? And so she kind of gravitates towards that. It took me. I did not recognize her, by the way, Jada. I was looking at her throughout the whole movie, and I was like, I don't know who this is. And then her credits at the end, I was like, holy shit. I mean, I see it now, but
Uh, yeah. I mean, I'm not. I think maybe the 720p might have played into that. That you didn't
maybe,
recognize her. Also,
maybe.
I never. I don't know. I'm not trying to like denigrate her, but I've known her more as like Will Smith's wife than I have like seen her in movies. I just haven't like she hasn't been in a ton that I've seen, right? But this is like one that I remember. And I'm like, oh, Jada's in this.
Yeah.
But I think that's probably maybe has something to do with it. Do you want to start from the top?
Let it drop.
What are you
Yes.
doing?
I don't know. I would like to start from the top. So, I mean, we start out by being introduced to Max and his hopes and his
No,
dreams.
no, that's not what I want to start about at all. I want to start when Tom Cruise is walking through the airport and the fucking
Oh,
transporter
yeah, Jason
gives him the
Statham. That's
briefcase.
right. That's right. Yeah.
So there was like this whole like fan theory thing on the internet, and I don't know where it started or if it started with the screenwriter, but basically like is that the transporter came out I think the same year, and the screenwriter of the movie has said that the two movies are in the same universe. Well, if they're in the same universe, then that means that was the transporter, right? That he was playing
Right.
that character from the
So
movie.
who wrote and directed the transporter?
I don't know. I can look it
Because
up.
well, no, it's okay because the
Luc
question.
Besson.
Okay, so it's not Peter Berg who is in this movie.
No.
Is it?
Do you think Peter Berg convinced Jamie Foxx to do The Kingdom when they were in this movie together?
You know the correlation between like Peter Berg and Michael Mann. They have very similar art styles in their directing.
grainy, like very grainy, which is supposed to be like, I don't know, more gritty, grainy.
The stark, yeah, the grittiness, the stark lighting, and also like the subject matter. Someone is always shooting in one of these motherfuckers movies.
Well, in the rundown, I guess there's not shooting until the end because he doesn't like guns, but I get your point.
Yeah.
Get your point. And then yeah, so then we meet up with Jada Pinkett getting picked up by Max, and I like this time was like, what are the chances that just this like successful female attorney is giving her number to a cab driver? Because she totally gives it to him because she's like interested in him.
Right.
Um, and so I just was like, especially considering he's kind of got this very like kind of closed off sort of muted personality, right? But like I guess she's attracted to his kind of like the way he handles knowing where to go, because it seems like directions around the city are important to her too. Like she's kind of a know-it-all about that.
There is that, but there's also the fact that what are the odds that the hitman assigned to kill her also gets in his cab?
It like there's a bunch of like little coincidences in this movie that are like, okay, you just have to buy. It at least makes sense that he would be at her building because he's like scoping it out to kill her later on. But the fact of the timing of it, of him coming out right afterwards, is like, yeah, just super coincidental.
And like, I mean, Tom Cruise says it the best, right? He's like, it's kismet. It's like, it's meant to be. The universe, the cosmos has like put him in that cab at the wrong place at the right time, or however he said it, right? And so it's like, I guess that's just what you have to buy, what you have to believe.
Well, yeah, I mean, I say this for a lot of movies that it's like, did you want to see the version of this movie where he gets in a different cab and just kills everyone and Jamie, you know what I mean? Like, this is just the version that we saw. Like, it's the more interesting of them. So sometimes, like, you just have to suspend your disbelief that these coincidences can happen. And then he picks up. Also, before we get to Tom Cruise, I didn't think his limo idea was that great.
Um, I mean, it's his dream, David. Who are you to destroy a man's dream?
I'm not destroying it. I'm just giving an opinion. You know, he can still do it, and maybe I'll be wrong. You know,
Hmm.
it's possible.
Recently, the most recent thing I watched from Michael Mann, it's not even something he directed, but something he executive produced, was Tokyo Vice. And it's like I think I mentioned this on the podcast before when we did some other Michael Mann thing we did, but
The Heat. I mean, Heat, not the Heat,
The
not the
Heat.
Melissa. If he did the Melissa McCarthy movie, that'd be great. But no, Heat is what you're referring to, I think.
It could have been Heat. I don't know, but my point is that
It's fucking Heat.
yeah, I think that the only other Michael Mann thing.
He also directed one episode of Tokyo Vice. I mean, he's directed Black Hat, Public Enemies, Miami Vice, Collateral, Ali, The Insider, Last of the Mohicans, Manhunter, The Keep, and we've only done Heat.
Well, I'm talking about Tokyo Vice right now. My point is saying that it's very good.
Oh, good. I'm glad we got there. That is important to me that you got to say that it was very good. I'm pretty sure you said it was very good on the Heat episode too. So Cruz gets into the cab, and I don't know, there's like a lot of dialogue here and there that this is a very simple movie that
You can
still
say
lasts,
it.
like,
It's not important. The dialogue, a lot of it is not important.
it's not important for plot purposes. I guess the obviously the writer and the director is like making a point with it. But I think, okay, well, here's my major thing, right? The movie does this really cool thing at the beginning where Tom Cruise is like, you know, everyone in this town is so disconnected. I read this story about this guy who rode the MTA for 6 hours dead. And then at the end of the movie, Tom Cruise dies on the MTA, the
Right.
subway system. And instead of just letting people figure that out on their own, the connection, Tom Cruise in his dying words is like, "Hey, remember that thing about someone dying on the MTA and riding it for 6 hours?"
You think they're gonna notice if I'm dead on the MTA? Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, just don't spell it out for us. I actually probably would have missed it, like slash forgotten about the beginning of it. Um, but like, don't spell it out for the dumb people like me. Just like let it sit. Like let people find that out on their own.
Yeah, I agree with you. I could see a bunch of execs getting together and being like, "Well, that's a great ending, Michael, but you have to spell it out for the general audience." And he'll be like, "Great, fine."
For the dummies like David.
You know,
I've said this all along though that movies have gotten better at this, where they don't spell things out for you as much. Like where they're like
some movies, yeah, definitely.
the good ones.
Yeah, the good ones. I think that's the most famous shot. At least that's the shot that I recognize from this movie the most is Tom Cruise dead on the subway. That wide where he's just kind of slumped over. That's to me is the most recognizable shot of the film.
Uh I don't know. I think to me it was probably just Jamie Foxx in the cab with Tom Cruise behind him like the whole time.
There's that. There's also that scene where he shoots those guys who rob Jamie Foxx, and then
Hey, homie.
yeah. There's that scene. I feel like that one's pretty known to this movie too. All right, but let's get there because I do want to talk about that scene more. Um,
I think we're at the first stop already where
we
he
are,
kills
yeah.
I love how many times and how many different ways Tom Cruise calls Ramon fat, the guy he killed. He's like, I killed one fat Angelino and you lose your shit. It's like just because Fat Boy had to stand in front of a window. Like, he just keeps saying it.
What are the like? How unlucky for that body to hit the cab.
Well, first of all, you have to have Jamie Foxx say, "Oh, I don't want to be parked out in front because I don't want to be double parked." And he's like, "Okay, we'll drive around to the side." And then yeah, and then for him to stand in front of a window. I was thinking when you go inside the apartment right after this with Ruffalo, I was like, dude, this is such a dude's apartment the way it's designed. Like the little like there's like you know what I mean, it just doesn't have like a woman's touch on it.
Like the one couch with the one TV and the one bed
And then
that
there's just like this leaf above the bed, right? And then I read somewhere that like this was just some dude's apartment, and the only thing they added was like a big screen TV, like in one of the rooms. That was it.
dude didn't even have a big screen TV.
And I don't, unsure if they let him keep it. You'd hope, right?
Um, so it took me the whole movie to figure out that this was Jada Pinkett Smith. It took me a good bit of this movie to figure out that that was Ruffalo.
Yeah, I mean, with the slick, you're normally looking for like the curly hair. That's like he's got a little. Usually, it's like not slicked back like this. So yeah, it's definitely in like at the time I wouldn't have like known to be like, oh, that's Mark Ruffalo. I realized it like 6 months ago when I watched it again. But yeah, it's also just like you said, like the lighting of this movie and like how it's like all at night. Just also just makes it difficult.
Well, it's his look too, but they also took away a lot of Ruffalo mannerisms that he usually has in his character. They gave him this different type of thing that he pulls off well. I when I was watching this, I kind of spread it over 2 days. So I watched up to the point where he goes to confront Javier Bardem in the club, and uh, it was so late at night, and I'm like struggling to get through this that I just pause and then continue in the morning. But I didn't recognize him because I guess I was just so sleepy. And then when I woke up and watched the rest of the movie, when I like backtracked a little bit to like watch that scene again, I was like, "Holy shit, that's Javier Bardem."
Well, I think it's the only time too that I can remember seeing him with like a buzz cut like that too. So it also like changes him a little bit too.
Well,
How short his hair.
it's interesting the way they take these well-known actors and they change them in this film in such a way. If Tom Cruise wasn't such a recognizable figure in Hollywood, giving him this like gray white hair is also a stark contrast on like what you would usually see Tom Cruise look like.
No, yeah, absolutely, I agree. Um, Jamie Foxx just looked like Jamie Foxx though. Like there wasn't much change
Yeah,
going on
that's
there,
true. That's true.
except he was nerdy.
I was gonna
And
say he usually like up till that point, he usually plays like a pretty cool guy character, right? So
yeah. Now there is some cool. I do want to say that Tom Cruise's dialogue in this movie is cool. It's probably like part of the reason he took it. But Jamie Foxx, like after this first shooting, after he helps him clean it up, he's like, it ain't my job to drive around killing people. And he's like, well, tonight it is. It's like you weren't supposed to know about this, but Plan B, we got to roll with it. And then just like a bunch of other like bullshit, like was it Ichi or whatever? I can't even remember what he says. And Jamie Foxx like, what the fuck are you even saying? Like none of that makes sense. I don't want to kill people. Um, and then they get stopped by these cops. And this was also just like another like coincidental thing, right? Like the cops are going to make them open the trunk. And Tom Cruise is like, dude, if they make me open the trunk, I'm going to kill them. That's going to be on you. You need to make them go away. And then as the cops are walking up, he's like, that guy's probably married. The other guy's probably got kids, like that they're never going to see him again. Like, you really got to make this happen. And then it just so happens that like a shooting call and they're like, all right, well, you can just take the cab and take it.
this movie's called Collateral because Jamie Foxx is the collateral within this whole like underworld hitman thing. But the alternate title to this movie could easily be just called Coincidence. And I'm thinking especially like when they go to visit Jamie Foxx's mother in the hospital, how Ruffalo gets into the same elevator as them.
Yeah, well, and this movie came out around the same time as like Crash, and Crash is like a movie full of like
Yeah, that's right.
coincidences and how things like all tie together. So I think this was a big like storytelling like device back in the day. The fact that Ruffalo walks into the elevator at the same time as them, as the audience, you're like, oh, what's gonna happen? They don't know he's a cop. He doesn't know these are the bad guys. This is like meaningless in the grand scheme of things. Like nothing's gonna happen right here.
Right.
So it's just in there to be in there, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, they don't make connections to the taxi until he actually goes to the morgue in the elevator and then makes the connections to the body, and then they meet up with who are they, the FBI?
Yeah.
And then they draw the connection to the taxi.
I like how interested that morgue worker is and how proud of himself is. He's like, dude, I think all these victims are connected. And he's like, how? He's like, wound pattern? He's just, look at this, 2 in the chest, 1 in the head. That's like tactical shit. And Mark Ruffalo's like agrees with him. The guy's like, fuck yeah, I nailed this. Like, because he never gets to do anything cool.
I feel like Michael Mann also does a very good job of taking these little characters and giving them all these little like minute details that gives them a lot of personality. Like it's quick, but it's extremely layered, and detailed. Especially how like easily they come in and out of this film. Like even Tom Cruise, who's supposed to be this like hitman, has this underlying worry that his life is meaningless, and it's not like largely projected throughout the whole film, because I think this film is still, it's focused on Jamie Foxx being the main character, but for Tom Cruise being worried that no one's going to notice his dead body on the subway, like that's a human thought to a very like inhumane character.
You know what, though? I actually think this is the whole point I want to make, and I want to make it towards the end. I actually think his character is a little more humane than like the movie kind of shows you at first blush. We can get to it now. So, he goes to the second killing, zip ties his hands. These fucking like swastika wearing motherfuckers come up and steal Jamie Foxx's wallet and steal the briefcase. Tom Cruise comes out. The "Hey homie" line is funny every time. And Tom Cruise, he's like, if you attract attention, you're going to get more people killed. And then he's like, do you like jazz? And then we're off to that. But
do you like jazz?
The scene I want to talk about really is the Ruffalo is at the crime scene now, the first killing. It's also just highly coincidental, right? That Ruffalo goes to this guy right after he's been killed. Like within, it feels like minutes, based on like the way the movie's presenting it. And, they're like canvassing the area, and one of the the other officers is like, "Oh, I just talked to this person that said a cab was parked here, but they didn't have very good eyesight." And Ruffalo's like, "Oh, there's this cabbie up in Oakland that went around killing 3 people, but the detective never bought it because the guy didn't have a criminal record, and he always thought someone else was in that cab." Um, and so then that's told to you in a very kind of exposition-y way, so that you're like, oh, Tom Cruise is going to kill him at the end of this. And he was always going to kill him at the end. Like, that's the way he does this, right? But which is not necessarily true, because we don't know why he killed that cabbie. It could have, something could have happened that caused him to kill him. Maybe he wouldn't have, if, whatever. Maybe Tom Cruise isn't as good of a hitman as we think, but
Right.
I think it at least puts it in your head that, oh, he's planning on killing Jamie Foxx at the end of this. That was always the plan. He was never going to just pay him and let him live.
I know you said that as a joke, that Tom Cruise is not as good as a hitman as we think, but I literally thought somewhere towards the middle end of this movie, it was going to reveal that Tom Cruise is a horrible hitman, and it would actually explain a lot from this film, like how much he's botched all of these jobs.
Like, Felix is like, "You lost the briefcase again? How do you keep doing this?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's like, that's why he couldn't go to Felix, because he's had to go to him before, and he's like, "I just can't keep doing this. I can't face him anymore." We're next at the jazz club. One thing that I took from this scene is, so the guy who is the jazz player, I recognized him. Obviously, I recognized him from a ton of stuff, but the main thing I recognized him from was Miami Vice. I actually thought it was in Heat too, but no, it was Miami Vice. He's also been in Ali. What I think is interesting is Michael Mann, like a lot of directors, likes to use a lot of like these same people throughout movies. So like Jamie Foxx was in Ali, this Miami Vice. Al Pacino was in Heat and The Insider, and then Russell Crowe was in The Insider, directed by Michael Mann, and he actually is the one that brought the script Collateral to Michael Mann to be in it, but then it took so long that Russell Crowe had to back out, but Michael Mann stayed on.
I am so glad Russell Crowe, because he would have taken Tom Cruise's role, right?
Yes, yeah.
I'm so glad it was Tom Cruise.
The alternate casting at the end of this is going to be fun, because there's like a ton of different like people that could have been in random spots. I think one that I didn't even write down to talk about, but like Johnny Depp was up for the Jamie Foxx part for Max. So there's just like a ton of like iterations of what this movie, could have been. But the jazz club part is really cool. I love how they're just having this conversation. Jamie Foxx is like, "Oh, finally everything's cool." And then Tom Cruise is like, "That's a great story. They're going to love that in Cartagena." And the jazz guy's like, "Man, I thought you were cool."
Yeah, what this movie does too is like it makes you think that like as the suspense is rising for Jamie Foxx, it's rising for us as the audience, and then as it's like cooling down, like seemingly the situation is becoming a calm one. Jamie Foxx starts to feel it, we start to feel it, and then it's like taken away from us immediately, and it's taken away from him immediately. So you're on this like roller coaster of emotions that Jamie Foxx's character Max is experiencing, but we're also experiencing it simultaneously as the audience. Like during his third hit with the Asian dude at the club.
I think was that fourth.
Well, how many people did he have to kill in total?
He had to kill 5. So he killed Ramon. And then the second guy was like Ramon's lawyer. And then
the jazz guy.
And the jazz guy's 3. Asian guy's 4. And then Jade is 5. After the jazz club, he's going out and he's like keeps getting this call from his boss. I liked earlier when this is one of the things I'm talking about. So Tom Cruise is like hearing Jamie Foxx's boss yell at him and say, "Oh, you're going to pay for the cab." And then Tom Cruise is like, "You don't have to take that shit," which is like one of the reasons I think Tom Cruise may have not killed him. He's like, hey, you tell him to like kiss your ass, and then he gets on. He's like, I'm gonna once again. Tom Cruise loves playing an attorney, even like a fake attorney. In this one, he's like, hey, I'm a U.S. attorney, and you're trying to extort this guy. I'm gonna be all up your fucking ass. He's like, whoa, 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 let's talk about it. He's like, no, there's nothing to talk about. And then you know, he does that. So then later on, the mom is looking for him. The dispatcher's like, yo, your mom keeps calling. You need to talk to her. And Tom Cruise is like, if your mom's looking for you, I can't have people looking for you. So we have to go to your mom. He's like, I'm not going to take you to my mom. He's like, since when is this a fucking negotiation? And then they go to his mom's. And what I think is so funny about this is like, so to escape the situation with the mom, he steals his briefcase. And it's not as if he was like, oh, I just hate what you're doing. It's just like, I don't want to be with my mom and you anymore. So I'm going to run out and take your briefcase and throw it away because of like how uncomfortable the situation with my mother is making me.
I took that, but also like he wants to get this hitman away from his mother. Like he doesn't quite know his capabilities yet, right? So he wants to kind of save his mother in a way. Um but yeah, so he runs away, he throws the briefcase. Now he has to go and retrieve the docket back. And this is great because throughout the whole movie, you're seeing Max's character arc to become more and more like Vincent, throughout. And here, where he's in front of Javier Bardem and the rest of the cartel, it's this fake out, right? Like he's mimicking him.
Yo,
And
tell your man to put that gun away. I'm gonna beat his bitch ass with it.
well, like he repeated what Tom Cruise said to him in the beginning to Javier Bardem, like word for word. There's like a quote or something. I forget exactly what it
Well,
was.
no, yeah, it was the I Ching, the I Chi shit or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
yeah,
said
yeah.
like, yeah, roll with it. Um, yeah, he's just sort of playing a character. I do think it was a little unbelievable how believable he was as like the character of Max, but like I was fine with it.
Yeah, I took it as like it was a survival instinct that kicked in. He's like, and I was really thinking too, like he was like, how long have you been on this job? Like if they ask, like I need to have as much information as I can possibly have to convincingly be you. And he said a bunch of stuff, but like one of the things, and it's like I think the only thing that came up was that he's been doing this for 6 years. And it's not like they outrightly asked him, we don't believe who you say you are. So how long have you been doing this? But then he like casually slips in. He's like, I've been doing this for 6 years. And not once have I ever, blah, 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 blah.
It's also funny. He's like, how long you been doing this? And he's like, private sector 6 years. So he's like, obviously like military before this.
Right.
There is some like cool conversation between Max and Vince where, Max starts asking him about, or no, I think Vince is trying to make Max feel better about his mom. And he's like, they project onto you what they want, their flaws.
Because
And
Vincent talks about his bad bringing up with his father. And the only thing I could think of when
upbringing.
upbringing with his father, the only thing I could think of when he said that was Magnolia. And I was like, what if Max is the same character from Magnolia, but like after his father dies,
Vincent.
he becomes Vincent? Oh yeah, what if Vincent, same character, but then he becomes this character after his father dies?
Yeah, I don't think the timeline works, but I mean, whatever works for you, I'm fine with it, really. So the other thing that I want to say about the scene where they're talking before they get to Felix is that it kind of feels like Vince likes Max, right? He's like, 12 years is temporary. What, why are you not making this limo thing happen? And earlier he's asked, like, why are you not asking this woman out, that gave you her number? Like, why are
Like
like,
he's trying to better his life. Yeah.
it's like, just, get your shit together. You can't keep waiting. And then they get to Felix's, and at the same time, Ruffalo goes to the feds, who happen to be watching Felix's. Another coincidence. And the feds like don't want to tell Ruffalo, who's an LA cop, anything. And he's like, well, I have these 3 people that are dead, and he gives them the name. And the feds are like, fuck, those are our 3 witnesses. And then,
but he doesn't say that. He doesn't say that those are the 3 witnesses. The only thing that this movie,
the Fed does.
I don't think the Fed. the Fed mentions that they're witnesses at that point, because later on you have Max asking Vincent, "Who are these guys that you're offing?" And he's like, "Oh, I don't know, but they give off federal witnesses to me." And then that's, as the audience, that's when you figure out.
I mean, the commander guy says it at one point. He says those are three witnesses because they just find out like another guy's been killed, and then Ruffalo looks over and he's like, "Oh, that cab has damage to it," and they run the plates and they're like, "Oh, it's this guy named Max," and so the feds immediately like, "All right, Max is the bad guy," and the Ruffalo is like, "Well, no, I mean not necessarily because he has this whole cop thing that he's thinking," and he's like, "Well, he could have." The feds are like, "Yeah, he could be a hitman that infiltrated this cabbie's life, and like he looks like him, so he's able to da da da." It's like none of that makes sense. But the fact that just like, all right, well, we just got to kill this guy. I mean, there's no like, I guess, right or wrong to this because it's all kind of like craziness, and they're just like, we got to save our witnesses because this is a huge case. Um, there, there's this other thing I want to talk about too, and the movie tries to explain this very like, I don't know, very like quickly, which is just like, how did they get all this information on these witnesses, like that should kind of be protected? But I guess the Javier Bardem explains like, oh, we have like the best counterintelligence, and we figured all this out when we should. It's not public knowledge, so we figured all this out to get these people, and so maybe that's like why it's, I don't know, so easy for them to like for this list to be created for Tom Cruise to kill these people and the FBI not be aware that like this could be happening.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of like, I don't know. The whole thing is like, that's odd.
Yeah. You know how in Heat there's like backstory on certain characters that it never really like goes too much into it, but you just believe it and eat it up as you're watching it, and it's like it not 100% of everything gets explained to you, but you and then when we read Heat 2, things became like more elaborated on certain aspects that the movie never even touched,
Right.
right? I feel like, and I'm not saying Michael Mann should go out and have Collateral 2 written as a novel, but if he did, I feel like it would be a lot in the same vein as the way Heat was explained, with like a prequel and then a sequel, and the prequel would explain exact, kind of like how
I think it would have to only be a prequel.
well, how kind of like how John Wick, the first one, sets up all this stuff, but it doesn't really go into much elaboration. But then the second, third, and fourth keeps building this world of like hired hitmens and mercenaries.
Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of like this. Like Collateral is just like the tip of the iceberg in this entire like faction that um Tom Cruise is hired into or whatever, or this criminal underground that Javier Bardem is a part of. But the movie gives us just enough to complete the movie, not really like anything outside of this world.
Yeah, I mean, but that's just John Wick. You just described like a hitman world, so it's just John Wick. Are you saying Tom Cruise is one of the John Wick guys?
I'm saying that Collateral, Transporter, and John Wick all take place in the same universe.
I'll allow it. Um, I think my favorite scene is the Felix Jamie Foxx scene where Felix is monologuing and the guys behind him are pulling their guns, and then Jamie Foxx like just is like has to pull it together right then and there to save his ass, and is like, I'm gonna beat that guy's ass with his own fucking gun. Um, and then he's like, in 6 years have I ever not finished? And my favorite part, he's like, as a token of my appreciation for you giving me this information, I'm going to give you a discount of 25%. And the guy's like, oh, thank you. He's like, you know what? Hell, make it 35%. Um, and then he also, there's this cool callback where the jazz musician's name is Daniel. And he says, tell Felix I'm sorry. I had to do it. They were going to put me back in jail. I can't go back to jail. And when he says that, you're like, Tom Cruise is never going to fucking tell them that you said sorry. Like, he does not give a shit about that. But because Jamie Foxx is playing the Tom Cruise part in this little section, he's like, by the way, Daniel says he's sorry. And Felix is so confused by this. He's like, why would he tell me that? Like, okay, thank you. Why? It's just so odd.
Yeah, I thought that was gonna like play a hand in finding him out later on, but I mean, Javier Bardem never comes back up into the movie. So,
Yeah. So we next have everyone in this entire fucking movie is heading to this fever nightclub.
yep.
You have the feds, Mark Ruffalo following them, Max and Vincent,
Javier Bardem's
Felix's
guys.
guys,
Yep.
yeah, all heading to this nightclub. It's a really cool scene. I like that, Tom Cruise just like go up 15 feet and then take a step to the left. And this is like when we get to see Vince at his like most badass, the way he like deals with these guys in sort of the hand-to-hand combat. There's also like the cops come out gun blazing, so the Asian guys that are protecting this guy that Vince is trying to kill, they pull their guns on them and then shoot one of the FBI guys, and then just all hell breaks loose.
Oh yeah, the FBI guy that got shot in the leg never comes back into this film, does he?
No, I think it ends pretty quick. Like the movie ends pretty quickly after this, so it's like not necessary, I guess. But yeah, none of the cops really come back up.
The biggest like oh my gosh moment I had in this film is when Ruffalo comes in and saves Jamie Foxx. He's like, "I know you're not the guy. I believe you. You need to come with me if you want to live." Very Terminator shit type shit. And Jamie Foxx is like, "Oh my god, thank God, finally a break from this crazy night." And then Mark Ruffalo immediately gets killed.
It also kind of doesn't make sense that Tom Cruise made it out of the nightclub before them. Did he like
No,
have
it
a different exit?
does not make sense at all.
Logistics are suspect on that part. But yeah, he shoots him. He's pretty much dead. And there's this scene right after this where Jamie Foxx drives off and he hits into a cab, just sort of sideswipes it.
Yeah.
And there's this story he told. I actually saw this when he was promoting the movie, that when he was doing that, he's like, "Oh, I can handle this." And if you watch in the movie, it's like very quick, right? It just hits it a little bit, and it's like barely like an accident. Well, when he's doing it, he's like, "I can handle it. We don't need a stunt double. I can do it." When he does it, instead of just kind of swiping the vehicle a little bit and keeping going, he just like fucking hits it and
Fucking
crashes.
crashes into it. And then he kind of crashes into a second car too, a little bit.
Well, he crashed it and like stopped, and then he said everyone on the set came to the car and they all checked on how Tom Cruise was doing.
That's funny.
Yeah. And so then after this,
what a way to check your worth, right?
yeah, right. They all cared about him. So then after this, he starts driving. I like they're just kind of talking shit to each other back and forth. He's like, "Oh man, you're so fucked up because your father did." He's like, "Well, what about you? You've been a temporary cab driver for 12 years." And then Jamie Foxx just starts driving really fast. And Tom Cruise pulls a gun on him. And Tom Cruise even knows, like, well, this isn't going to work because he'll just kill me. And Jamie Foxx is like, "What the fuck? Yeah, fucking pull the trigger. That's great. That's exactly what I want. Kill me right now." And then they crash the car. And I love after they crash the car that Tom Cruise is like kicking Jamie Foxx through the window. He like breaks it open so that he can like kick him,
Right.
like to inflict damage on him. And then he has to head out because a cop comes. And the cop finds the body and pulls his gun on Jamie Foxx. And Jamie Foxx is like, "Thank you. Take me to county jail, please, like right away." But he sees Jada is the next victim.
Yep.
And so he does this move on the cop, and the cop starts yelling at him. And he's like, "Is this a fucking negotiation? Shut the fuck up."
But at this point he's fully become his character arc. He's fully become Vincent. Whether
And then he steals that guy's phone right after the guy tries to stop him, and then he like points the gun at him too, which is like, I mean, that's a crime. Like that he could get in trouble for that after this is all over.
he's also like saved someone, and like I don't know how you come back from that case, by the way. Like that Javier Bardem totally still gets off, right?
Yeah,
Like,
well,
all the witnesses are dead.
This is kind of a flaw in the movie, right? That you've killed all the witnesses. You don't need to kill the prosecuting attorney because they're just going to put another on there, and then you've killed a federal attorney. So now they're going to devote more resources to coming after you. It's actually like highly illogical to do that.
Yeah, but I guess like her surviving, she now becomes a witness to.
No, I mean she's not. She didn't. If they don't go after killing her, she's not a witness to anything. She's just like, oh, my case is fucked.
No, no. What I'm saying is because Vincent went after her, she's now become a witness to being like, oh, this guy hired a hitman to kill
She
everyone,
doesn't.
including
She doesn't.
myself.
She doesn't. It's not in her personal knowledge to know that why Vincent tried to kill her.
Okay, so Jamie Foxx becomes a witness?
Yeah, he could.
Yeah.
But my point, I mean, the point I was making is it just makes no sense to go after her. If that, like, just it's illogical. But you have to for the movie.
Where he gets his phone and the battery keeps dying and the signal keeps dying. I'm just like, my fucking god! Like, dude, I guess they didn't have 5G back in like 2004,
Dude, they
but
didn't even have LTE. What was it? Was it 3G?
yeah, 3G.
Was
But
it
then,
a single G?
but he had to like go on top of this like parking garage to like get somewhat of a signal. But I love how he can see the office windows in which he's at from the vantage point of the parking garage.
I like that in this movie, a lot of times when something like this happens, the people just don't believe the person that's telling them this. But Jamie Foxx is like, dude, I met Felix, and she's like, Felix, da 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 da. He's like, yeah, Felix, and she's like, oh well, shit, he would, she's like, he wouldn't know that name unless he's telling the truth. The rest of this has to be true. Like I should listen to him. But I like Tom Cruise is in her office. She happens to not be in her office. She's in the law library.
Well, I
But
love
then,
that fake out too, where she's seemingly at her office and
yeah,
then he's seemingly going to her office and then he busts down the door. And you think, like, because it keeps intercutting with the phone call, you think there's a part where she believes him and she hides, and the filmmakers just decided not to show you that. But in fact, they're in two completely different floors.
now, so I love when Tom Cruise sees her cell phone at her desk. So he's like, she's in the building. And then he looks at the phones and sees that someone on the 16th floor in the library is using the phone. But logistically, so Jamie Foxx looks at her card. It probably doesn't have her cell phone number on it, but let's say it does. He calls the cell phone first. She doesn't answer because she's not near her cell phone. So then he calls the work number, but the work number would either go directly to her
Did the
office
operator?
or it would go to like a receptionist normally, right? And they'd be
Right.
like,
Yeah.
dial the extension. But it rings in the 16th floor library right
Yeah.
next to her, which is supposed to be part of the fake out of thinking she's in her office. But like, I don't know, it kind of doesn't make sense that it would ring right there.
And she's the only person in the entire building, apart from the security guy who died.
Does
And then
every phone in the office ring?
if that
If
number
someone
is
calls after
dialed.
hours, they're like, whoever answers it.
They could have solved it easily too, with if she just had her cell phone on her and he just called her cell.
Yeah, but then you got to figure out why does Tom Cruise.
Because when
I
he's
mean,
in,
one explanation is that maybe she forwarded all the calls that went to her desk to the 16th floor because she's the only one up there. Maybe she could do something like that.
oh yeah, I guess. I mean, I guess it doesn't
It's
have to
still
be
weird.
explained either.
Who cares? This is the first time I've ever noticed it, and I doubt a lot of people noticed it. But it was something I just thought about.
This is why people listen to the podcast, for cutting edge information like this.
So Tom Cruise finds her, is about to shoot her. Jamie Foxx is like, let her go. And he's like, what the fuck are you going to do about it? And just shoots him. It's like, bro, shoot him 2 more times. Like right then and there. The movie's over. Just kill him. But instead they run. There's this scene where Cruise throws a chair through a window, and it's clearly Cruise, then tries to jump over the chair, but lands on it and falls to the ground. And that was a real take. That man was like, oh, I'll just leave it in. And it's one of those ones that's so obviously a real take that it's funny that it gets left in because it is just looked like so comical.
There's another part of this movie a little earlier that I found very comical, where he picks up the trash can to try to break the glass of the building, and it just bounces off, and then he pulls out the gun and shoots the glass out. But I'm like, it's like one of those fake outs that would work in any other movie. Like, it's worked in all the other movies, but they just wanted it to be a fake out because you're 100% expecting the glass to break via like the first try. But like, there's no logical sense where you throw a street side garbage can into a building window and it shatters.
I mean, not a very good one. I think, especially like a federal building like that. But I think it's funny. I haven't seen this movie, but I want to watch it. I bought it, the movie Tag, and I keep seeing this scene where John Hamm is in a conference room, and then he's like, "This guy's in there." He's like, "Who is this?" And it's I forget what's the guy's name, but he's like one of his friends who's trying to tag him, and he's like, "I've got you cornered," and he's like, "No, you don't." And he takes a chair and throws it against the window, and the chair just bounces off and hits him in the face and knocks John Hamm out. They
Um,
kind of like reminded me of that.
did I ever tell you I was like in Atlanta? I was on the scene of that movie.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, you did. We've talked about it.
And one of the funniest things was we were there and it's like it was weird because they didn't close the set completely. Like it was the middle of the mall and they didn't close the set completely. So all of a sudden there was like all this security and all these like people and um me and Bill and like a couple other guys were there and we were like, what the hell is going on? And then all of a sudden we see Ed Helm and then one of the guys goes,
That's who it
"Oh,
was. It was Ed
yeah."
Helms.
He goes, "Oh fuck, it's Ed Helm." And then someone very quickly comes up to us and go, "You guys need to leave now."
We were I was walking back to work when we were in Atlanta, and they started filming. It was this TV show about like superpowers or something like that, and there was a scene where a guy like drives down the road and like throws something at them like it's a hate crime or something. And
Was it
every
the
time
boys?
I don't think so. I think it was a different one because I remember what it was, and it was like a CW thing.
Oh, okay.
But the people on the megaphones were like, guys, when we start filming, you can't just stand there and watch, just please walk naturally. Because people were stopping to look at it, and they're like, you have to act normal if you're going to be like in the background of this, which I just thought was really funny. So back to this. I think it's also, you talked about the coincidences in this movie, but Vince just happens to follow them exactly like the right way down to the trains to get on the exact right train, which we think he doesn't get on the right train because he gets on the one on the above level, but it turns out that they went back up the ramp and got on that same one.
Is that what happened? They went back up?
Yeah, we just don't, because Cruz doesn't go down. He just goes, he jumps across and gets to that one, and they just happen to be getting on that one. So they would have had to have gone back up to get on it. I mean, it's once again, it's like it's the only way the movie's interesting if he happens to follow them exactly. But you'd like for them to be some reason that he did instead of just him being like a magician. Um, and this part at the end is very cool. One thing I thought about is like they get to a stop and like Jamie Foxx is like, oh, should we get off or not? One thing I thought about this time is like as the doors are closing, Tom Cruise gets on. But if you hold the doors open, he's on a different car. That doesn't hold the door open for the entire train. If you just hold your doors open, you wait till he closes his, you can then just get out, and
Yeah.
then he's stuck. But
I
so
thought about that too. Or like, yeah, I thought Jamie Foxx was going to jump out and take the bullet and let Jada go. That's how I thought this movie was going to end.
if he lets Jada out, though, Tom Cruise is going to follow her because he doesn't care about. I thought about the two, but he doesn't care about Max as much as he cares about, And we're at the end, so we can talk about this. That what I think is really cool is, so first of all, I'd never thought about this before, but there's a shootout at the end. Jamie Foxx shoots blindly. Tom Cruise does the same, 2 bullets and then one in the head that he always does. But because the doors are closed, his bullets get stopped, and Jamie Foxx's random pattern kills Tom Cruise. Probably killed that old lady in the back. I don't know. No one got off the train after this shooting. Everyone besides those Jamie Foxx and Jada get off, and no one else gets off. But it's just funny. So because of that, and he does the random shooting. Tom Cruise reaches to get more bullets and kind of feels the blood, and then he just stops, right? And what I think is interesting is, he had the ability to reload and kill Jamie Foxx before he died, but he's like, "Oh, I'm going to die. What's the point? I'm not going to complete my mission, and I'm going to die anyway. I don't need to take this guy with me." And it kind of is like this. He's not like a pure evil guy. He's just this guy that like rationalizes the work he does. And it's like, this is what I do. It's what I'm good at. And he also throughout the movie he kind of likes Jamie Foxx, because there's several moments where he could have killed him,
He
like when he
saves
throws his
him in the
briefcase.
nightclub
Yeah.
in Fever. He legitimately goes out of his way to save him.
So I think the movie is very good at like kind of presenting Tom Cruise as like this nuanced hitman instead of like a pure evil guy who's like, has like no redeeming qualities. Like he's still a bad guy, but like, there's layers, I guess.
Um yeah, that could be partially why he took the role too, you know.
Probably. Yeah, probably.
I mean, overall, this movie was not what I expected. I've seen this movie circulate quite a bit, around Twitter, and I've seen screenshots of this film, and I actually thought this movie was going to be a lot longer and a lot um, more elaborate. And I'm surprised how contained and focused this movie is. It doesn't do a lot to branch out, but not in a bad way, in a good way. I'm curious, David. What are the alternate castings?
So there's a bunch of different ones, but
Hit
uh,
me.
Ed Norton was offered both roles.
Okay.
Um, Val Kilmer was cast as Detective Fanning, but had to pull out for the movie Alexander, so Mark Ruffalo took that role. Um, Colin Farrell was offered the role of Vincent.
Oh, he would have been great.
Well, and he does later do Miami Vice. Yeah, he would have. I honestly almost would have preferred Colin Farrell in this. Tom Cruise is great, but you know my feelings on Colin Farrell.
It's hard to get over Tom Cruise being Tom Cruise. The only time I've ever seen Tom Cruise completely lose himself in a role is Magnolia.
Yeah, I mean, I think he kind of does in this too. Ironically enough, the movie that I think he, as of recent, plays a different character than he normally does is Jack Reacher.
Really?
Yeah, he is playing like a very different character in that. There's still obviously Tom Cruise shines through because he's Tom Cruise, but he is very different. At one point, Mann wanted Tom Cruise playing the hitman and Adam Sandler as the cabbie, which I actually really like. I think that works really well.
That would have been funny.
And then, according to Cuba Gooding Jr., he met with Michael Mann and wanted to play the role of Max, but because of Jerry Maguire, Michael Mann was like, "I can't have Tom Cruise playing this and you playing that. Like, it's not going to work."
And basically, I'd much rather have Tom Cruise than you.
And then, so it's kind of funny. Russell Crowe was going to play this role, but he didn't commit because he was preparing for a movie called Eucalyptus, which was an Australian film that never was made that was going to star Nicole Kidman, Tom Cruise's ex-wife. And then there's also this funny thing where Tom Cruise used to date Penelope Cruz, who then married Javier Bardem.
Right.
And then Cruise was also married to Katie Holmes, who later dated Jamie Foxx. So Tom Cruise seems to be pretty. I think he's actually still friends with Javier. So Tom Cruise seems to be pretty cool. Like once people break up, he's like, that's fine. Whatever. It's got to be the teachings.
I mean, Hollywood is such like a small world comparatively to like everyone, especially like the top actors and actresses within that. What am I thinking of? Elite. The elites. So it's not surprising that there's like crossover dates and marriages.
Well, overall, I'm glad we switched it up. Did Collateral instead of
Oblivion.
Yeah, dude, I fucking blanked on that. Yeah, this was great. We need to do the Miami Vice movie. We need to do Ali. Like, we just need to run through these Michael Mann movies because they're all great.
Not only, yeah, I really want to do the Miami Vice because if it's anything like Tokyo Vice, it's really good.
Well, that one takes place in Japan. I don't know if you're aware.
Yeah. Does Miami Vice take place in Florida?
Miami, I think.
No way. Not only
Some
do we have
Lauderdale.
to, I get it. The joke is dead. Not only do we have to get through Michael Mann movies, But I still have yet to see all of Tom Cruise films, and not the bad ones we mentioned earlier. But I really want to see Vanilla Sky. Is definitely high up on my list.
We'll have time. So, thanks for listening to another episode of I Finally Watched. This is David.
And this is Lon, and I finally watched Collateral.